On the quiet edge of our solar system, beyond the familiar orbits of our planets, there are objects that drift through the cosmic dark. They are the wanderers, the silent travelers from other star systems known as interstellar objects. Most are just that, inert pieces of rock or ice. But what if one of them was different? What if one was not a natural object at all, but a deliberate visitor with a purpose? In the vast expanse of space, an uninvited guest has entered our celestial neighborhood. Its name is 3I, Atlas. It arrived not with a whisper, but with a series of strange anomalies in its behavior, anomalies that have sent a quiet tremor of disbelief through the astronomical community. Tonight, we journey into the heart of this cosmic mystery. We will leave behind the comfort of what we know and ask a question that changes everything. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't just a comet, but an alien probe watching us? The vast cosmic deep is monitored by a network of vigilant sentinels, automated telescopes scanning the heavens for any sign of a new arrival. One of these systems, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS, is designed to be our planet's first line of defense against potentially hazardous celestial bodies. Its routine is a meticulous one. Capture images of the night sky, compare them against previous observations, and flag any new object that has moved. It is a process that yields thousands of data points a night, a torrent of information that is sifted through by both algorithms and human eyes. In the autumn of 2019, Atlas performed its duty, and the data it collected was entirely unremarkable. At first, a new object was flagged in the distant reaches of the solar system. It was given the provisional designation C, 2019 Q4. The initial data suggested a straightforward classification, a comet. Its faint, fuzzy appearance and a subtle, nascent tail were the telltale signs of a frozen wanderer beginning to warm in the sun's embrace, its volatile materials sublimating into a gaseous shroud. The observation was noted, logged, and set aside. There was nothing to suggest that this celestial visitor was anything but an ordinary chunk of ice and rock on an interstellar journey. But as more observatories turned their gaze to the new object, the initial, straightforward data began to unravel. Astronomers at the University of Hawaii who managed the Atlas system noticed the first anomaly. When they analyzed the object's spectrum, the fingerprint of its chemical composition, they found a puzzling lack of the usual signatures. Comets, as they approach the sun, typically display distinct spectral lines from molecules like cyanogen and diatomic carbon. These are the telltale products of sublimation, the release of gases from the comet's icy core. But the spectrum of C, 2019 Q4, was eerily quiet. It lacked the vibrant chemical signature that should have been there, leaving scientists with a fundamental question. If it was a comet, where were the gases that defined a comet? The mystery deepened. Further observations revealed a faint, yet persistent glow emanating from the object. It was not a reflection of sunlight, but something far more perplexing. It appeared to be generating its own light. This was a direct violation of the rules that govern the behavior of comets. The only way a comet produces a glow is through the sublimation of its volatile materials, which create a surrounding coma that scatters sunlight. Yet, the data showed that this object was not actively shedding its material in a way that could explain its luminosity. Its light was steady, unnatural, and could not be reconciled with the physics of a typical cometary tail. The initial designation was quickly changed to 3I, ATLAS, with the 3I signifying that it was the third officially recognized interstellar object. But this new name did little to ease the growing unease. The data, the very foundation of scientific understanding, was presenting a paradox. This object looked like a comet, but it did not behave like one. It was a contradiction in the cosmic deep. The initial shock of the discovery was giving way to a more profound question. If the laws of nature did not apply to this object, what laws did? The answer, if one existed, would challenge everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The quiet unease among the astronomical community, first sparked by the strange, featureless spectrum of 3I, Atlas, was about to give way to a far more profound and unsettling question. For while its chemical makeup defied classification, its trajectory through our solar system defied the very laws of celestial mechanics as we understand them. The initial orbital data, collected and analyzed by astronomers, presented a conundrum that was not just difficult to explain but seemed to suggest a deliberate, almost intentional course. A typical interstellar object, one unbound by the gravity of our Sun, should behave in a predictable manner. It would enter our solar system on a hyperbolic path, a wide-angled arc, moving at a very high velocity, and then exit with the same speed, barely interacting with the gravitational fields of our planets. Its course would be a fleeting, one-time passage through our celestial neighborhood. Yet 3I Atlas did not follow this script. Its orbital alignment was, for lack of a better word, perfect. As the object approached our Sun, it appeared to perform a braking maneuver, an action that required a significant reduction in its speed. This was profoundly strange. A comet's speed is a function of its origin and its path, not something that can be easily altered. But the data indicated that 3I Atlas had slowed down, allowing it to spend an unusually long amount of time in the inner solar system. But the most unsettling discovery was its orbital alignment. The path it took was almost perfectly synchronized with the ecliptic plane, the flat pancake-shaped region where all the planets in our solar system reside. It was an alignment that was statistically improbable for a natural, randomly entering object. It was as if the object had deliberately entered our solar system on the same plane as the objects it was visiting, a feat that would require incredible precision and a purposeful trajectory. Scientists attempted to find a natural explanation. Could it have been a gravitational slingshot, a maneuver where an object uses the gravity of a large planet to alter its speed and trajectory? This is a common technique used by our own space agencies to send probes to the distant reaches of our solar system. However, the numbers simply did not add up. The object's trajectory did not align with any known planetary passes that could have produced such an effect. Furthermore, the object's sheer presence in the inner solar system and its continued presence within the plane of the planets defied any known natural explanation. The data was clear. This object's path was not the result of a random, natural gravitational encounter. It was a precise and methodical course. And so, the quiet whispers among the astronomers turned into a more pointed question. If the path of 3I Atlas was not a coincidence, could it be a matter of intelligence? The perfect alignment, the braking maneuver, the long, unhurried presence in our solar system all pointed to a singular, disquieting conclusion. The object was not just passing through, it was on a deliberate journey. It was here to observe. The strange, self-generating light we saw earlier, which had no natural explanation, might not have been a byproduct of a natural process, but an indication of a technological one. Perhaps the light was a power source, a navigation beacon, or even a form of communication. The mystery of the object's strange light and its perfect orbit were no longer two separate puzzles, but two halves of the same unsettling whole. They were no longer just anomalies, they were potential signs of a purpose, and that purpose, if it was to observe, meant we were already being watched. The quiet apprehension among astronomers, first ignited by the peculiar spectral analysis and then by the profoundly unsettling orbital alignment of 3I Atlas, was about to reach a new and more urgent level of inquiry, for in the heart of its perplexing nature lay a third anomaly that seemed to defy all known celestial rules. This was the strange, faint, and persistent glow that emanated from its body, a luminosity that offered no easy explanation and forced observers to reconsider everything they thought they knew about interstellar objects. To understand the puzzle, one must first recall how a natural comet generates light. As a comet, a frozen body of ice and dust, approaches our sun, The increasing solar heat causes its volatile components, water, carbon dioxide, methane, to sublimate, turning directly from solid to gas. This process creates a massive swirling cloud of gas and dust around the nucleus, known as a coma. It is this coma, scattering the sun's light back towards us, that creates the distinctive brightness and the ethereal tail that we see. The luminosity of a comet, therefore, is directly proportional to its proximity to the sun. It brightens as it draws near and fades as it moves away. It is a predictable and well understood phenomenon. The light emissions from 3I Atlas were anything but predictable. Initial observations showed a faint tail, which led to its first classification as a comet. But as more powerful telescopes gathered data, a more intricate and confounding picture emerged. The light it emitted was not the brilliant reflected radiance of a sun-warmed coma. It was a steady, almost unnervingly constant glow, a luminosity that did not fluctuate in a manner consistent with its distance from the sun. Furthermore, when scientists analyzed the light's spectral signature, its unique chemical fingerprint, it did not match the typical scattering pattern of a comet. It showed a unique, non-natural signature that could not be reconciled with any known cometary material. This was not scattered sunlight. It was a light source in its own right. Astronomers, ever seeking a natural explanation, proposed various hypotheses to account for this strange phenomenon. Perhaps it was a faint glow from a minimal amount of dust, too small to be seen in a tail but still sufficient to scatter light. This was quickly ruled out, as the light's consistency defied the chaotic, intermittent nature of such a process. Could the object contain some exotic, unknown element that was reacting with solar radiation to produce light? While a remote possibility, it was a placeholder explanation for an object that simply did not fit into any existing framework. The more the scientists examined the data, the more it became apparent that the light was a fundamental and active property of the object itself, not a passive reaction to its environment. And it was at this point that a profoundly different kind of question began to surface. If the light was not a natural occurrence, could it be artificial? Could it be a sign of a purpose? The steady, controlled nature of the emission suggested that it was being generated, perhaps as a power source, as part of a propulsion system, or most intriguingly, as a form of communication. The light was no longer just a puzzle. It was a potential signal, a visual testament to a technological origin. The three anomalies, the puzzling lack of cometary gas, the unnervingly perfect orbital alignment, and the strange self-generated light, began to form a cohesive, compelling, and deeply unsettling whole. The object was not behaving like a celestial body, but like a machine that was on a deliberate path, with a power source that was actively running, and a design that was a complete departure from anything we have ever witnessed. With the natural explanations exhausted, the scientific community found itself at a crossroads, forced to consider a radical and paradigm-shifting idea that this was not a wanderer, but a visitor. And the most vocal proponent of this extraordinary idea was about to step forward and shake the world of astrophysics to its very core. As the enigmatic data surrounding 3I Atlas continued to baffle the astronomical community, the discourse remained confined to a quiet, academic realm. The anomalies, the peculiar spectral emissions, the unnervingly perfect orbital alignment, and the strange self-generated light were acknowledged as puzzling, but a consensus on a natural explanation was still sought. The idea of a manufactured origin was considered too radical, too speculative, to be seriously entertained in a field that prizes empirical evidence and Occam's razor above all else. But one prominent figure in the field of astrophysics was not willing to wait. Enter Dr. Avi Loeb, the distinguished chairman of the Department of Astronomy at Harvard University. A man with a long and respected career in cosmology and theoretical physics, Loeb is a luminary in his field. He had previously garnered global attention for a similar and even more audacious hypothesis regarding the first interstellar object ever detected, a peculiar visitor named Oumuamua. In 2017, Oumuamua entered our solar system on an impossible trajectory and exhibited a strange non-gravitational acceleration as it passed the Sun. While most scientists attributed this to a phenomenon known as cometary outgassing, even though Oumuamua showed no evidence of a tail, Loeb proposed a different and far more transformative explanation. He suggested that Oumuamua's behavior could be most easily explained if it were not a rock or comet but an artificial object, perhaps a light sail from a distant civilization. His paper on the subject shook the scientific world, drawing both immense criticism and intrigued fascination. For Loeb, the case of 3I Atlas was not a singular event, but a potential pattern. He saw in its behavior the same fundamental refusal to conform to natural laws that had characterized Oumuamua. He argued that the three key anomalies of 3I Atlas, its unnatural luminosity, its lack of a cometary tail, and its precise, controlled orbital alignment were not isolated puzzles. They were, in his view, the compelling components of a single, coherent narrative. He proposed that the most logical explanation for all three anomalies, when considered together, was that the object was not a natural celestial body but a technological construct. Loeb's hypothesis posits that 3I Atlas could be a sophisticated extraterrestrial probe. Unlike his suggestion about Oumuamua, which he saw as a potential piece of discarded technological debris, he viewed 3I Atlas as a functioning and perhaps even operational machine. The perfect orbital alignment, he argued, was a deliberate navigational choice, a path that a probe would take to best survey a planetary system. The strange light emissions were not the random sputtering of a comet, but could be a sign of a power source, a navigational beacon, or perhaps even a form of data transmission. The absence of a cometary tail was, in his view, simply proof that it was not a comet. The reaction from the broadest scientific community was swift, and for the most part, highly skeptical. The majority of astronomers believe that the anomalies of 3I Atlas can and will eventually be explained by a new or unknown natural phenomenon. They argue that we are still in the early days of observing interstellar objects, and it is a mistake to jump to such an extraordinary conclusion before all conventional explanations have been exhausted. This adherence to a cautious and conservative approach is the bedrock of scientific inquiry. However, Avi Loeb, standing firm in his conviction, continues to challenge this paradigm. He argues that we must be open to the most profound possibilities, even if they make us uncomfortable. He suggests that if an object walks like a machine, behaves like a machine, and doesn't fit the definition of a natural object, then we must, in the name of true scientific inquiry, at least consider the possibility that it is in fact a machine. His vocal stance on 3I Atlas has once again forced the world to ask a question it is not yet ready to answer, and it has set the stage for a new kind of cosmic debate. Dr. Avi Loeb's hypothesis, while controversial, was not born in a vacuum. It was the culmination of a series of observations that he saw as a distinct and deeply unsettling pattern, one that began with a visitor that arrived in 2017. Before 3I Atlas became the subject of intense scrutiny, there was another interstellar traveler, the first ever observed, an object with the strange Hawaiian name Oumuamua. In the quiet of the cosmic deep, Oumuamua's passage through our solar system was a brief, enigmatic encounter that left behind a trail of unanswered questions, questions that now echo with a chilling clarity in the behavior of 3I Atlas. Oumuamua was a cosmic enigma from the very moment of its detection. Astronomers first noticed its unusual, highly elongated, cigar-like shape, inferred from the way its brightness changed dramatically as it tumbled through space. It was a shape unlike anything we had ever seen among the asteroids and comets of our own solar system. Its proportions were extreme, more than 10 times longer than it was wide. This shape alone was a puzzle, as it seemed an unlikely form for a naturally occurring object that had been knocked around a star system for billions of years. But the object's shape was not its most confounding characteristic. The true puzzle of Oumuamua lay in its trajectory. As it flew past the sun, it exhibited a peculiar and subtle non-gravitational acceleration. It was speeding up as if something were giving it a gentle, continuous push. In the world of celestial mechanics, such a push is usually a telltale sign of cometary outgassing. As a comet's icy body is warmed by the sun, it releases jets of gas that act as small thrusters, subtly altering its path. However, Oumuamua showed no signs of a coma, no visible tail, and its spectrum was utterly devoid of the chemical signatures that define a comet. Its acceleration was smooth and uniform, a gentle, sustained push that was completely inconsistent with the erratic, burst-like behavior of a comet's outgassing. The data did not lie, but it also did not make any sense. For Avi Loeb, this was the moment when he first introduced his radical hypothesis. If a natural explanation did not fit the data, he argued, we must be open to an unnatural one. He proposed that the non-gravitational push could be explained by solar radiation pressure acting on a very thin, broad, and light sail-like object, a piece of discarded technological debris. His suggestion was met with intense debate, but the fundamental paradox of Oumuamua's behavior remained. And now, with the arrival of 3I, Atlas, the uncanny similarities between the two interstellar visitors are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The echoes of Oumuamua are not just whispers, they are a pattern. Both objects, in their own unique ways, have refused to conform to the rules of celestial physics. Just as Oumuamua had no cometary tail but exhibited behavior that suggested outgassing, 3I, Atlas was first classified as a comet but displayed no signs of the chemicals that define a comet and instead produced the strange, self-generated light. Both objects entered our solar system on highly improbable trajectories. While Oumuamua's path was extreme, 3I, Atlas's path was eerily precise, aligning almost perfectly with the ecliptic plane of our planets. The two objects, arriving within a few years of each other, shared a fundamental defiance of the known laws of nature. This shared pattern forces us to confront a more profound question than whether a single object is anomalous. It asks if these two anomalies are part of a larger coordinated system. Are they simply random cosmic oddities, or are they two pieces of a puzzle? If the most logical explanation for the anomalies of Oumuamua and 3I Atlas is that they are machines, then their shared features and their repeated arrivals suggest that our solar system is not an isolated, empty space. It is a destination. And if they are indeed machines, the fact that they are not passing through but are seemingly settling in for a long-term presence suggests a more unsettling possibility. They are not just visitors, they might be here to stay. And the purpose of their stay may be far more complex than simple observation. The pattern, as articulated by Avi Loeb, is an unsettling one. Two objects arriving within a few years of each other, displaying behavior that defies natural explanation. The data, if we are to accept it as a potential sign of an artificial origin, points not to a cosmic accident, but to a deliberate, purposeful design. And if that is the case, the most compelling and thought-provoking hypothesis to emerge from the scientific community's quiet deliberations is the idea that 3I Atlas could be an ancient sleeper probe. The concept of a sleeper probe is a staple of science fiction, but it is also a logical extension of our own aspirations for deep space exploration. A sleeper probe would be a long-duration, automated machine sent on a multi-million or even billion-year journey to a distant star system. Its builders, perhaps a long-vanished civilization, would have designed it to lay dormant or sleep until it reached its destination. Its primary function would be to conserve energy, operating in a very low power mode, a state of suspended animation, waiting for the precise moment to awaken. And this is where the hypothesis connects so eerily with the anomalies of 3I Atlas. The object's slow, deliberate approach, its apparent braking maneuver, and its unnervingly perfect alignment with the plane of our planets could all be interpreted as the actions of a probe taking its time to settle into a stable, long term observational position. This is not the behavior of a passing rock. It is the methodical course of a machine on a pre programmed mission that is in no hurry. The very fact that it has been present in our solar system for an extended period, moving with such precision, could be a sign that it is now awake and beginning its programmed function. But what would be the trigger for such an awakening? What would an ancient, long dormant machine be looking for? The hypothesis suggests that the probe's sensors might have been set to detect a specific set of conditions, perhaps a change in the spectrum of our sun, or perhaps the presence of a specific chemical signature in our atmosphere, one that signifies the presence of complex life. The most compelling trigger, however, might be the sudden appearance of radio signals. Our civilization, in the last century or so, has begun broadcasting its presence to the cosmos through radio and television waves. To a long dormant listening post, this sudden chaotic burst of radio chatter would be the equivalent of a loud, clear signal. It would be the sign that a technological civilization has finally emerged. The engineering challenge of a mission lasting millions of years is immense. How would such a probe maintain power for such an immense duration? This is where the strange light emissions of 3I, Atlas, take on a new, more profound significance. The light could be a byproduct of a system coming online, a sign that the probe is drawing power from an internal source, or perhaps even from the energy of the sun itself, converting it to power for its internal systems. It is not just an oddity. It is a potential sign of a technological process, a system moving from a passive, dormant state to an active operational one. The idea that an ancient machine sent from a civilization that may be long gone is now silently observing us is a profoundly humbling and unsettling thought. It asks us to reconsider our place in the universe and our understanding of time. The probe would not be a new arrival, but a long-lost messenger, a silent witness to our cosmic journey. The question is no longer whether we are alone, but whether we are already being watched by a very old and very patient presence. And if it is indeed a probe, the next question becomes even more urgent. Are we just being observed, or are we being actively scanned? If we accept the possibility that 3I, Atlas, is not a celestial wanderer but a conscious, or at least pre-programmed observer, a new and more urgent set of questions arises. The probe's arrival, its settling into a stable orbit, and its apparent awakening all point to a singular purpose: to gather information. The question then becomes not just what it is, but what it is doing. Are we merely an object of passive observation, a distant curiosity, or are we being actively and systematically surveyed? Are we being scanned? The mission of a probe sent from a distant star system would logically be one of deep data collection. It would be interested in a holistic picture of our planetary system, a detailed report on the evolution of a star and the worlds that orbit it. Its initial data collection would likely be focused on the basics: the composition of our planets, the stability of our star, and the fundamental physics of our solar system. But the most crucial data point, the most significant discovery, would be the emergence of a technological civilization on one of those worlds. This data gathering could take one of two forms. The first, and most likely, is passive listening. In this scenario, the probe is a cosmic fly on the wall, a silent, imperceptible recorder. It would be listening to the faint signals of our radio and television broadcasts, the chatter of our satellites, and the various electromagnetic emanations that signify our technological footprint. To an ancient, patient machine, our television broadcasts would be a treasure trove of information, a detailed archive of our civilization's history, culture, and progress. It would be collecting this data, analyzing it, and perhaps compressing it into a single, comprehensive report to be transmitted back to its makers. But a far more unsettling possibility is that the probe is engaged in active scanning. In this scenario, the probe is not just a receiver but a transmitter. It would be actively probing our planet, sending out signals to gather data on a more fundamental level. The strange light emissions of 3I Atlas, which defy a natural explanation, could be a key part of this process. The light might be a powerful, coherent beam operating on frequencies or in a spectrum that our instruments are not designed to detect. It could be a form of active radar, a sophisticated method of mapping our physical infrastructure, our cities, and our technological centers. It could be a form of spectroscopic analysis, a way of probing the very atomic composition of our planet and its inhabitants. The implications of an active scan are profound. A passive listener is simply an archivist. An active scanner is a surveyor. It is a presence that is not just observing us, but is actively engaging with us, albeit in an imperceptible way. It forces us to confront the fact that we might not be alone in our cosmic existence, and that we might not even be the sole masters of our own domain. The idea of being under a silent, invisible, and all-encompassing surveillance system is a deeply humbling one. Why would a civilization choose to scan us? Is it for a census? Is it for scientific curiosity? A way to understand the evolution of life in a cosmic petri dish? Or is it for a more strategic, perhaps less benign reason? This question echoes the famous zoo hypothesis, which posits that a more advanced civilization is deliberately observing our development without interference, like animals in a zoo enclosure. The silence from the outside is not because there is no one there, but because they have decided not to make contact until we reach a certain level of maturity. If 3I Atlas is indeed a probe, whether it is passively listening or actively scanning, the implications for humanity are immense. It means that we are no longer alone in our cosmic existence. It means that we are part of a larger galactic ecosystem, a system that has been and perhaps is currently observing our every move. The ultimate question then becomes, what will the probe's report back to its creators say about us? What will be the final data it transmits? And what will that mean for our place in the universe? It is a question that, for now, hangs in the cosmic silence. We have explored the scientific paradox, the theoretical possibilities, and the philosophical implications of a potential probe in our solar system. The evidence, while not irrefutable, has been presented by a credible figure who sees a pattern that defies conventional wisdom. Yet, in the face of such a profound proposition, there has been a remarkable and deafening silence from the very institutions that one would expect to be at the forefront of this conversation. The world's governments and their premier space agencies. This quiet non-reaction is, in itself, a kind of communication, a powerful testament to the complexity and sensitivity of the matter. But beneath this layer of scientific pragmatism, there are more profound and strategic reasons for the quiet. A public acknowledgement of an extraterrestrial presence would be a cataclysmic event, a black swan moment that would ripple through every facet of human society. The immediate reaction from the public would be difficult to predict. It could range from mass hysteria and the breakdown of public order to the rise of new religious movements and a complete loss of trust in existing institutions. A government's primary responsibility is to maintain social stability, and the disclosure of such information would present a risk that most would simply be unwilling to take. Furthermore, a declaration of a foreign extraterrestrial presence in our skies would create an immediate and profound national security crisis. It would be an admission that we are not the sole or even the dominant power in our own solar system. It would raise fundamental questions about our vulnerability and our ability to defend ourselves. The object's capabilities and intentions would be unknown, and a government would not want to reveal what it does or does not know about this profound unknown. This silence is a strategic move, a way of managing a national security risk that has no historical precedent. And then there are the quiet geopolitical considerations. The race for technological and scientific dominance is a constant underlying current in international relations. The first nation to successfully study, analyze, and perhaps even understand the technology of a foreign probe would gain an immense and unprecedented advantage over every other nation on Earth. The data collected, the technological breakthroughs unlocked, would be the most valuable intellectual property in human history. To a government, this is a prize to be sought, not a discovery to be shared. The silence, therefore, is also a form of quiet, intense, and highly secretive international competition, a race for access to the secrets of the universe. The silence from our governments is not just about the object itself, but about the profound societal changes it could unleash. It is a reflection of our fear, our caution, and our strategic ambitions. It shows that the potential existence of a silent observer is not just an academic curiosity, but a matter of national and global security. The silence, for now, is all we have, but it speaks volumes. It tells us that the leaders of the world are not just observing the data, they are managing the fallout of a potential truth that could change everything. And that sets us up for the next logical step in our inquiry. Are there other signs, other data points that this phenomenon is not unique to 3I Atlas? The quiet debate surrounding the potential artificial nature of Oumuamua and 3I Atlas would be far less compelling if they were isolated incidents. In the vastness of the cosmos, a single anomaly can be dismissed as a statistical fluke, a strange cosmic oddity that will, in time, be explained by a new or unknown natural phenomenon. But the very foundation of the alien probe hypothesis is a suggestion of a deeper, more profound pattern. This pattern becomes chillingly clear when we expand our gaze to include the other interstellar objects that have silently entered our solar system. The first of these was a comet named 2I, Borisov, which was discovered in 2019. Unlike the peculiar Oumuamua, Borisov behaved exactly as a natural interstellar comet should. It was a well-behaved cosmic snowball with a distinct coma and a brilliant tail. Its trajectory was a clean hyperbolic curve, and its speed was consistent with an object that had been flung from another star system. Borisov was, in essence, the control group in this cosmic experiment. It showed us what a natural interstellar visitor looks like, and in doing so, it made the anomalies of Oumuamua and 3I Atlas even more significant. Borisov's very normality highlights the strangeness of the other two objects. But the pattern doesn't stop there, Doctor. Avi Loeb and his team have identified other interstellar objects that have passed through our solar system not as comets or asteroids, but as tiny, unheralded meteors. Two of these objects, designated IMON and IM2, burned up in Earth's atmosphere in 2014 and 2017. Their detection was a quiet triumph of science, a confirmation that the universe is constantly sending us small cosmic visitors. But when their data was analyzed, it revealed a profoundly strange property. The meteors had a material strength that was far beyond that of any known space rock. They were tougher than 99.99% of all other meteors in the NASA catalog, so much so that they had to have been constructed from materials not found in any natural asteroids. Now, we must consider all these objects together. We have 2I, Borisov, a pristine, natural comet, exactly what we would expect to find. And then we have the others, Oumuamua, with its impossible acceleration and lack of a cometary tail, 3I, Atlas, with its inexplicable light and its unnervingly perfect orbit, and the interstellar meteors, IMON and IM2, which were so strong they defy a natural origin. The argument then is not that every interstellar object is artificial, but that a small yet significant portion of them are. It is as if our tiny cosmic fishing net has caught both ordinary fish and a few metallic manufactured objects. The sheer statistical improbability of these anomalous objects appearing so close together in our cosmic history is difficult to dismiss as mere coincidence. It suggests that we are not just observing a few random wanderers, but are instead beginning to witness a larger, more complex phenomenon. The pattern tells us that our solar system is not just being visited, but that it is on a cosmic map. The silence from our governments and the whispers from our leading scientists are not about a single object, but about a growing body of evidence that suggests a new and perhaps unsettling truth about our place in the universe. If we are to take this pattern seriously, then the next question becomes a matter of urgency. How should we, as a species, respond? As we ponder the possibility that we are not alone in our cosmic existence and that our solar system may be a long-standing destination for others, we must acknowledge that this notion is not a modern one. The idea of visitors from the sky, of beings from a higher realm traveling through the heavens in strange machines, is a theme that runs like a common thread through the historical and mythological fabric of almost every human culture. Before we had telescopes and spectrometers, our ancestors had only their eyes, their stories, and their faith to make sense of the profound mysteries of the sky. In the ancient texts of India, from the great epics of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, we find repeated and detailed descriptions of flying machines known as vimanas. These were not metaphorical chariots of the gods, but were described as powerful, city-sized flying vehicles, often depicted as having windows and propelled by a fiery energy. The texts describe them soaring through the clouds, engaging in aerial battles, and carrying celestial beings from one place to another. To the people of that time, these objects were the chariots of the gods, and the beings who piloted them were beings of immense power. But to a modern mind, the descriptions of these vimanas bear a striking resemblance to advanced flying craft, a technological element woven into the very heart of ancient mythology. In the cradle of civilization, the ancient Sumerians and Mesopotamians, on their thousands of clay tablets, wrote of beings who descended to earth from the heavens. They called these beings the Anunnaki, and their stories describe a race of godlike figures who was said to have given humans knowledge and civilization. The accounts of the Abgal, the seven sages, who were sent to earth by the sky god Anu to give humanity the laws of civilization, paint a vivid picture of beings who are not from this world. Depictions of these beings often show them with wings, or associated with winged discs, a motif that some now interpret as a symbolic representation of a technologically advanced presence. Even in the most foundational texts of Western civilization, we find accounts that, to a modern mind, seem to defy a simple spiritual interpretation. In the book of Ezekiel from the Bible, the prophet describes a profound and strange vision of a wheel within a wheel and a fiery chariot that descended from the heavens, accompanied by strange, living creatures. This description, with its mechanical precision and its lack of familiar organic forms, has long puzzled theologians, but to a modern observer, it could be a raw and unrefined description of a machine, a technological encounter that was filtered through a purely religious lens. And in the annals of ancient Rome, historians such as Pliny the Elder and Livy recorded events that, if they were to happen today, would be front-page news. Livy, in his histories, writes of spectacles of ships gleaming in the sky and round shields seen in the sky. These were not myths or legends, but were recorded as real, factual events, inexplicable but undeniable. Similarly, ancient Chinese texts speak of celestial vessels and flying chariots, even relaying an anecdote about an emperor who ordered a flying chariot destroyed so that its existence would not be known to his people, a strange echo of the modern secrecy we discussed earlier. In a pre-scientific age, a visitation from a technologically superior being could only be understood in the language of mythology and religion. The powerful, all-knowing visitors were not seen as scientists or explorers, but as gods. Their advanced machines were not seen as technology, but as divine chariots and celestial homes. The shared human experience across cultures and millennia of looking up at the sky and witnessing something that could not be explained now takes on a new and chilling resonance. It suggests that the three eye atlas is not the first and may not be the last of these visitors. It suggests that humanity has been, for a very long time, a quiet observer of a cosmic phenomenon we are only now beginning to comprehend. The question is no longer what we have seen, but what we are going to do about it.